Okay, the fourth in our series of habits of highly effective impressionists is called goals in the start. The start is this huge thing that has everything to do with the picture going forward. The the respect for the ensemble, for the thing taken as a whole is vast. It's like the underpinning of the entire impressionist mindset. So you'll see as we go through these points, the goal in the start is sets the stage for everything you do going forward. And so this is one of those things. And again, I'm going to give you this as a Boston School / Paul way of thinking. But you'll find the corollaries through all of impressionist work that there's this need to be all over the place at once in the start, for example. And you'll see all the things I'm talking about. So let me show you at least one picture. I'm going to jump around with the images I have here. This is a tarbell. There's several tarbells here, and a couple, and I think they're all tarbells except there's one of mine also. But here's a tarbell. You can see it's a start. This is a lay-in, and these are the kind of things that might have happened in one day, in one sitting. And I haven't seen these in person. If you're in person, you can see whether there's wet paint on dry in a lay-in. You can actually make out where that's happening. You can see it in, for example, Paxton's nude in the Museum of Fine Arts. You can see how the layers, how it's more than one layer. There are ways to understand that once you've painted it yourself. And so I'm going to show you that one. I'm going to jump over to this other one by Tarbell. These are all going to be ones I'm going to jump toward as I can. And then there's this one by myself, just a head study, what you call a portrait, but it was a demonstration. And then this is Tarbell landscape. We'll wind up talking about that one. So I hope my producer can be patient with me if he can make it less painful for the viewer the way I hop around here. But I didn't come up with a better way to deal with it. So let me just get you started on the points, though. So the first point is covering the canvas in one sitting. Now, that's not obligatory, but if you're all over the place at once, even if you don't cover the canvas in one sitting, you're doing the right thing. So, and the bottom line up there, this list I'm showing you, being all over the place in the start, hop, hop, hop. Gamel's phrase was hop, hop, hop. Be all over the place. You got to get it all up there so you can see what you got, because it's an ensemble. It's a unified. It's a group of things that have inherently their rightness is in whether they're right together and produce the big impression, the magic of the big impression, all those kinds of fun words. So covering the canvas as one sitting is my objective. And for multiple reasons. One of the reasons I give that is because I want to know on that first day, by the time I get done with that first sitting, I want to know whether this picture is going to be worth painting, right? Now, you know that I could have, and in fact do, little tiny studies. So I've already ascertained that. But I want to see it on the big canvas. So if you look at the GBA time-lapse video of the violinist, you might be able to find out how much of that I did in one day. The bigger you get, the more difficult it is to do in one day. So it's not like the imperative. But a second reason for covering the canvas in one sitting is because the day will change. And so the next day may be significantly different. You've got to figure out how to get enough data up there so that you can then work, especially in a portrait, so you then can work on the picture when the day might be wrong. You can work on different aspects of it. For example, the spatial material doesn't go very far away. Obviously the sitter's in the pose right and that sort of things. There are things that you can do. Sometimes there aren't. You're way better off just making sure you have the right day if you haven't accomplished the mission of the covering of the canvas in the first day. But you can take that to be my prerogative. I suggest to you what I see, or my preference, But you can see, though, when I'm showing you these other guys' work, like this one, if you look at that stuff in person, as I said before, you'll be able to tell whether this was done at one sitting by the marks, by whether there's wet over dry. And so it's not one of those rules that I simply force a student into, but it's a mentality about being big, about getting all the major things in the conversation. Where if you should be able to cover the canvas if you're dealing with majors, masses, major effects, and not minor subplot things, okay? So that's another aspect of that mind. So establishing an accurate, expressive, big general impression by the end of the start, that's a goal, okay? So now these are sort of in your mind, right? These are floating goals or things you're trying to go toward. This is not a how-to here. It's just what you're trying to get. So establishing an accurate, expressive, but big, just about the majors, general impression by the end of the start. Keeping everything unified from the lay-in to the finish. So the first few marks, you're always going back and reviewing those first few marks to see how they're feeling. Are they integrated? Are they right in relation to each other already? Are they unified, in other words? That's all we mean by unity in that case, right? So, and that's the Baron Grow conversation. I put that there without managing to miss a space. But Baron Grow said that you wanted to, and I've said this to you before, but Baron Grow said you wanted to have your painting always in harmony so that it actually would be viable in the marketplace as a work of art, which has inherently in it a unified ending, right? Degas said that's how he could tell the end. He could stop a picture because everything would be in harmony, that very idea. So harmony for an impressionist is just the right relationships, all that stuff there, and it's producing the big impression because all the relationships are so good, so harmonious. So you check all those things from the first 2 or 3 marks. You're always looking at them, okay? And you can see that in this painting, that it feels like actually the notes feel like they're right in relation to each other, right? The drawing, such as it is, which is mostly effect-based, not outlines of objects drawing, mostly effect, silhouette-based drawing, is doing something that actually looks to us plausible, right? So we're saying that he's spent a good deal of, he spent whatever time he spent on important things and got the better part of the larger effect by having done that, okay? And so that's the definition, that's the kind of goal in the start, is to make sure you have that kind of unity. Now, this conversation, getting all the horses pulling at once, this is very much the Boston School / Impressionist mindset. Boston School in particular, though, because the Boston School, unlike Monet, actually incorporates drawing, meaning drawing silhouettes right from the beginning. And you can see there's a slower march toward that from Monet. And I suggest that's really because he's not a landscape painter, where there's a lot of texture and movement of color and shifting and all that sort of stuff. But you can still feel like in some of those London Bridge or whatever those bridges are, where he's appearing to get it very slowly to the drawing, even in the cathedral ones, wherever that is. So you understand, though, the Boston School puts in, and so does Sargent, and most people that are subsequently working, they're considering all the horses include silhouettes. So it's not just colors and values and spots of color, even though it's that first, but getting all the silhouettes involved, which incorporates means that spatial precision is also part of the lay-in, part of that first start, okay? Now, I'm going to jump down to searching out the color first and just show you the model I showed you a couple weeks ago, but that is this one from Tarbell, in which you can easily see that what he's focused on is really getting the colors to feel pretty plausible, the color values to feel pretty plausible. But in this one, and so that's the color first model. And you can see the beautiful movements of colors and the whites and the general sense of the color, like the white being a colored white, not just being a white thing that you're going to get color into later. He's searching out the color notes. You can see that a lot of you are doing, somebody sent me recently some studies, landscape studies, and they didn't incorporate the full spectrum. But you can see that he's getting all sorts of colors in his greens, getting color movements in the greens, as well as in everything else he's doing. So, but this is a very nice example of that idea of being all over the place and having all the horses, because as you can see at the cheek, for example, into the shoulder there, or the back of the neck, these incorporating drawing. And in different other places you'll find that, and you'll find exactly that with Sargent starts as well. Those few that you can find where there's an orientation toward the big impression coloristically. And we know that Sargent, there's a conversation where they said he started by putting spots around the canvas. So you understand that that's a very similar model to this one, but that's the all over the place hop, hop, hop thing. And then when you go to to articulate the cheek, for example, you're going to do something there, but you're going to have to get the neck involved, and you're going to get other players in the category of strong silhouettes involved, whichever ones that are useful, well, you'd have to say useful, but also there, the ones that are there. So you want them all into a discussion. And you can see that again with some of the decamps I've shown you in the past. So that's the starting with the colors model. And then again, of course, the strong, major, visually dominant elements first. You see what I'm saying? So that's where you really have to know. Let's go down to this one here. And so we're just talking about, there's a lot of stuff in here that isn't very worked up. It's just sort of suggested, the stuff down here. But these strong ones here, visually dominant, visually dominant, visually dominant, including the big blast of the head of, the glow of that light up there, the dominant, that thing, every aspect of what we do, the edges, the order of things lit, the light value range, the darkest dark to lightest light, every aspect of what we do, all of them are set. They're all working at once. So strong, major, visually dominant elements first, and there's no subplot there. By the time, if somebody like myself or Tarbell has gotten to the point where he's doing anything that looks like subplot, he's not doing it with losing time there. He's making sure he's got this in exactly the right place, or aspects of this, because it's such a significant thing that has to be well placed. These exits are like that, as I've said to you in different videos. These exits, hugely important things in a composition to place those things well. But those are dominant from the point of view of the frame, and other things are dominant visually by effect. So this is the power effect. This is also the center of the picture, so there has to be enough action there to be able to hold all the rest of this stuff. So there's a dominance of that area more than other areas in nature, and therefore you want it by the end of a start to also have dominance, okay? To have its primariness, which means you can be, I wouldn't say the word is sloppy, but you can be less organized, less refined, less articulate by a little bit in certain other areas. But the more you are doing any kind of a statement at all about something, you really have to be precise about it. Otherwise, find some way to say, we're really not talking about this right now. All right? And I don't want to be doing something that's just too subtle, but the last one is the most important one, though, and that is that in the start, your goal is to anchor all elements and then to keep them ordered in relation to each other. So what's my darkest dark and lightest light? And what are the anchors? Some of the anchors are literally the exits, if you're looking through a viewfinder, right? Or an anchor is the chief effect. That's by the world of effects. Like I was showing you on that arm there. That's a huge piece of anchoring material, right? So let's look at this. In doing this picture, the location of this is a major anchor. You put that exactly where you want it. And so is this exit and placement down here, this thing that's just to the right of center. These are what we call anchors. By effect, this is an anchor, this is an anchor. You could say this is the sharpest edge in this picture, probably. That's an anchor. If you know that's so, and you're dealing with edges, you want to know which one is the one that has the greatest sharpness, right? And then there's this whole descending order of lostness. Yeah. So, but the color is the same way. You want your richest notes. If this is your richest note here, and if you believe this is your richest note, it should show that way. So, and you should, in other words, set it up early and often, because you need to anchor your intensities. You follow me? So everything has this anchoring thing: placement on the page, size of the thing on the page, and then the basic, like the order of the effects, right? Whatever this is to this stuff. So you got to find your anchors there, and some, what we're doing at the end, by the end of a start, is you have your anchors and you have your other top players when it comes to effect, and you have them all well placed. So the placement issue then becomes a big deal. And what are you anchoring to? So there's at some point you're finding something that lands well, that you can actually say, oh, this is easy for me to find. I'm going to use that as a point of placement from here to the top here, or in any way you want to think of it. But there's these anchors in space. But top and bottom is the most important anchor. And then you need an anchor left and right. So at some point or another, you're deciding it's either going to be this as a left holder or this one. Or it could be even this here, because at the exit, it could be your placement holder. And then all the other guys are anchoring to it. Every other location is anchoring to what this is doing, left and right. So that's what I mean by anchors. That's the very nature of a good start of our kind of painting. All right, I wonder if there's anything else I can think to say to you on this subject. you keep that in mind, that what we mean by getting all the horses, you got to make a list for yourself of what all the horses are in a painting. If you're painting visually, well, it's certainly a good range of things. It's considerably more limited. And if you look at the first video, you'll see what we had for as we begin to say, you have to have names of all the elements. But all these elements have to be established. The values have to be established in the picture. The color scheme has to be established in the start. The form play has to be established in the start. The visual order of the light effects has to be established in the start. All that stuff has to be done. And of course, everything related to placement on the page. I think I said that already. All right. So keep all these things in mind. These are just purely visual elements. The more visual you are, the more manageable this gets. Okay. One of the great reasons for being an impressionist in this small I definition of the term, which is just the look of nature in front of you, as if you were a portrait painter. All you're doing is portraying what you see. And then it begins to just be a problem of ordering and collating. So once you find the anchors, everything else knows who to be. Once you get top and bottom, the chin knows where to land, right? Top, head, bottom, etc. Then everything begins to know where to land. And that's in the very nature of bringing order, is to establish some certainties and then build with them always in your mind. What's the darkest dark and lightest light? Never let go of them, never forget them. And yeah, I could tell you in a start, you want to have seen the color scheme, you want to have the general tonality, the best you can get it, and you want to have to whatever extent you can get it, the brilliance of the light effect. Just the things. Just have in mind this, what that could possibly mean. This idea in the start of, of having it all, having an essential statement, or a statement of the essential truth, and having it project in that first day, ideally, or soon, before you ever get to anything called finish. Having it early on set up to produce the magic of the impression in the largest sense of that word, and very precise in the. One thing I could have said here is that a start like this, these kinds of starts are precise in these things, especially the anchor points. They're precise. And you can see in that drawing of the woman's head, or even in this one, you can see that he's being very specific about the edge quality here, the light effect quality here. And he's differentiating it from this one, shall we say, up here. I meant to use my laser on these things, and I've been letting you down on that one. But you can see what he's done throughout this entire painting is relational, and everything is ordered. But you have to find out, you have to establish things, and establish them means you have to hunt them out, search them out, right? So other things like keying and all that sort of stuff is in the category of, but these are in the, in the action stuff that's going to be coming up in the next videos. All right. The rest of the stuff after today is going to be that in that way. It's going to be that discussion. Okay. All right. So those are the general things, and this is the beginning by talking about the goals. And the next thing you'll know, you're going to be seeing the action. All right. Okay. Good. And so that's that. And I've run over a little bit by necessity, I guess. So again, thank you all for your lovely donations, for this fantastic explosion in subscribers, and I know that we're going to have to get to you again with a live one. So get your ideas ready, Mr. Producer. I'm hoping we can do that after we finish this series. I'd love to have feedback on this series and whether or not this sort of thing is actually a benefit to you. The way I'm doing it. I want to say this one last thing. I know I'm taking even more time than I shouldn't have, but this whole thing I'm doing here has never been done for me. I'm doing it looking back over my world, because you're all out there in this discussion. I'm trying to actually lay out the things that I've experienced, the things that I've run into, and the things that have given me success, such as it is. And it's always your wisdom to decide whether my success is the kind of thing you're looking for. And anyway, in any case, to whatever extent we're on the same page, I hope this is helpful to you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks, donations, sharing, and all those things one more time. And have a good painting day or two before I see you again.